Today we are going to tackle the one absolute truth every single human being knows, but literally desperately avoids, and that is the fear of death. I mean, think about it. We spend our entire lives distracting ourselves from the terrifying reality that one day everything we know will just disappear. But to face this fear head-on, we're going to explore one of the most profoundly ancient and incredible texts ever created, the Katha Upanishad.
Now, you might be wondering, how do we even begin to answer the ultimate human question? Well, what's really interesting here is that we aren't going to do it through some dry, dusty philosophy. We're going to answer it through a story. Imagine an 8-year-old boy named Nachiketa, who actually literally walked right up to the god of death to demand the truth. It's an epic journey driven entirely by deep, transformative dialogue, first with his father Vajashravas, and ultimately with Yama, the god of death himself. And as you'll see, it reveals not just what happens when we die, but how we're actually supposed to live.
Section 1. Dialogue at the Sacrifice. So, our story kicks off thousands of years ago at a massive, sacred fire ritual called the Vishwajit Yajna. It was hosted by a highly respected sage named Vajashravas. Now, the absolute non-negotiable rule of this ritual was that the host had to give away their most prized possessions to gain heavenly merit. But here's the catch, and it perfectly highlights the hypocrisy of human nature. Vajashravas wanted the spiritual reward, but without the actual sacrifice. So instead of giving away his best, healthy livestock, he secretly held his real treasures back and donated old, weak, dying cows. The crowd totally saw it, but no one dared question this powerful sage.
Well, out of that completely silent, observing crowd stepped his 8-year-old son, Nachiketa. And the text makes a point to note that Nachiketa wasn't driven by just blind faith. He had this rare, undeniable clarity. He saw the falsehood for exactly what it was. Because he truly loved his father and didn't want to see him trapped by his own dishonesty, the child confronted him head-on with a simple, piercing question.
This moment brilliantly illustrates the intense tension of the scene. The father tried to just ignore him, but knowing that he himself was his father's most precious possession, the boy asked the question not once, but 3 times. "Father, who will you give me to?" He was pushing his dad to the absolute brink, forcing him to confront the grim reality of the ritual.
Finally, in a sudden fit of uncontrollable rage, the sage snapped. He shouted a curse that literally froze the entire ceremony. "I give you to Yama, the god of death." It was just a catastrophic moment. You see, in ancient traditions, words spoken in such intense rituals, especially by a sage, could never, ever be taken back. The father realized his horrific mistake almost instantly, but the damage was already done.
Yet, incredibly, instead of trembling in fear or crying out, the child calmly accepted his fate. He actually consoled his grieving father. He reminded him that the physical body is completely temporary, saying it's just like grain in a field. It grows today and it's harvested tomorrow. He told his dad not to break his sacred vow for something as fleeting as a physical body. And with that, this little boy began his solitary walk straight into the underworld.
Section 2. 3 days, 3 wishes.
So, Nachiketa completes his terrifying journey to the underworld, only to find a wild twist waiting for him. Yama, the god of death, isn't even home. He's out running errands. So the boy just sat outside the gates of the underworld. Night 1, no food. Night 2, no water. Night 3, absolutely no fear. He waited there for 3 full days without a single complaint. When Yama finally returned and saw this 8-year-old boy sitting peacefully at his doorstep, he was completely shocked. Yama, the actual Lord of Death, felt terrible for the suffering he had caused his little guest. To make amends, he offered Nachiketa 3 wishes, 1 for each night he had waited. Now, Nachiketa selflessly used the very first wish to secure his father's peace of mind back home, making sure he'd be welcomed with love. For his second, he asked to learn the sacred fire ritual that leads to heaven. Yama gladly granted both of these. But guys, it was the 3rd wish that truly changed the course of spiritual history. For his final wish, Nachiketa looked death right in the eye and demanded to know the ultimate truth. He basically asked, when a person dies, what remains? Does the soul survive, or does everything just end forever? This is literally the question humanity has feared since the dawn of time, and it shook Yama. Even the god of death hesitated to answer this one.
Yama tried his absolute hardest to dodge the question. He offered the boy unthinkable bribes. We're talking unimaginable wealth, long life, endless power, and heavenly pleasures.
Take all of this, Yama pleaded, but do not ask about death. But Nachiketa, he rejected every single distraction. He pointed out that all wealth and pleasure eventually end in death anyway, so what's the point? He proved right then and there that he was ready for the absolute truth.
Section 3. Pleasure versus truth.
Realizing the boy was clearly no ordinary child, the god of death transitioned into the role of a profound spiritual teacher. Yama explained that every single human is constantly torn between two paths. First, you have prayas, which is the endless chase for temporary pleasure. It feels really good right now, feeding the ego and the senses, but it traps you in a cycle of constantly wanting more. Then, on the other side, there is Shreyas, the path of truth. It's usually very difficult at first and requires a lot of discipline, but it is the absolutely crucial path that leads to ultimate freedom.
So, the foundation of Yama's entire teaching is this profound paradigm shift. While the physical body is definitely going to perish, the consciousness inside it, your true self, is eternal and completely indestructible. It was never born, right? And therefore it can never die. You are simply not your temporary body.
Section 4. The Chariot Metaphor.
To explain how we actually navigate this human experience of being an eternal soul trapped in a temporary body, Yama delivered what I think is one of the greatest psychological metaphors in ancient history. Picture a chariot. The chariot itself is your physical body. The horses pulling it, those are your senses, constantly looking for something to see, taste, or touch. The reins controlling those horses represent your mind. The charioteer holding the reins is your intellect. And the passenger, sitting quietly in the back enjoying the ride, that is your soul, the master inside.
Yama warned that if your intellect, the driver, is weak or falls asleep at the wheel, the mind loses control of the reins. And when that happens, watch out. The horses, your senses, will drag you all over the place, into addiction, distraction, and immense suffering. But if you have an awakened intellect, you discipline the mind, you control the senses, and you drive that chariot smoothly toward peace instead of chaos.
Section 5. The Inner Nachiketa. As the dialogue reaches its breathtaking climax, Yama imparts the final tools. With these iconic, powerful words, arise, awaken, and stop not until the goal is reached, Yama calls upon Nachiketa, and really all of us, to wake up. He taught that through deep meditation and the sacred vibration of Om, we can peel back the layers of our ego. We can finally realize that we are pure consciousness, not our fleeting thoughts, and certainly not our fears.
Ultimately, Yama completely redefines immortality for us here. It's a real game changer. Immortality isn't some biological hack to keep your physical flesh breathing forever. It's a profound psychological shift. It is the state where the fear of death entirely loses its power over you because you realize you were never just the body to begin with, and all those worldly desires have simply vanished.
The reason this thousands of years old dialogue matters so much to us right now is that, if we're honest, we are all still Vajrasravas in a way. We're running from death, constantly distracted by status, money, and that path of pleasure. Yet, buried deep inside every single one of us is an inner Nachiketa. We all have that inner clarity waiting to awaken, that part of us that desperately longs for undeniable truth. So as you reflect on your own journey and the two paths Yama laid out, I want you to ask yourself, are you constantly feeding the temporary path of pleasure, or are you doing the hard work to awaken the eternal truth within? Tell me, what kind of driver is steering your chariot today?